Fishing! No, fishing! 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 Fishing!
I think it's time once again we took a mosey on down 505 Game Street. What would we find this time? What baffling Japanese offering have they distributed for us unsuspecting Westerners? A fishing game! Huh, that sounds pretty mediocre. Not just any fishing game. This has an adventure story as a framing device. Ah, that's more like it. A story involving an ancient civilization who worshipped fish and... Whoa. Slow down. Normally I wouldn't have considered a fishing game for review, but this one has the 505 Game Street name attached, so I had to take a look. Published in 2005 and developed by Starfish, Fishing Fantasy is a prime example of localization risk. I love to experience obscure Japanese games that, without localization companies, wouldn't have seen the light of day outside their home country. So grab your rod, put on a silly hat and let's see what lurks beneath the surface. The first thing that you may have noticed is that this video is in 60 frames per second, and that is localization done right. A game developed in an NTSC region should naturally retain its original resolution and frame rate, instead of a potentially poor PAL conversion, but I ranted about that in my Kaya Dark Lineage review. Fishing Fantasy has an NTSC mode, so NTSC it is. After the many logos, the game begins with a text scroll opening. So, if you'll indulge me. This small island country known as the Kingdom of England. That sounds familiar, but I can't quite put my finger on it. The climate is pretty mild and everyone leads ordinary lives. There once lived a scholar named Pat Possum deep in the forest, a little far from the Kingdom Castle. Every day Pat spent all the time studying archeology in the Royal Academy. He tried very hard to emulate his uncle, who's a great archaeologist. But it was hard for him to give up fishing since it was one of his favourite things to do. One day, while organising his bookshelf, he found a memo written by his uncle. The memo told of a prosperous super-ancient civilization on the tropical islands located south of the kingdom. The people there worship fish as messengers of God. The civilization seemed to have quite advanced technology, and the fish there varied in odd colours and shapes. Pat, bored with studying, gets ready to head for the tropical islands. His heart is fluttering with anticipation of discoveries about the ancient civilization and the hope of seeing unknown fish. Blimey, take a drink every time they say ancient civilization. Don't mind if I do. Anyway, a week goes by, Pat stumbles arduous through the jungle, finds some ancient ruins, he touches a wall, a light flashes and he wakes up in the past or some shit, I don't know. So he does what anyone would do in that situation. Start fishing, of course. Pat is confronted with a talking statue, telling him that fishermen are a highly prestigious position and he needs to prove his worth in order to enter the city. He tasks Pat with catching fish, of course, a red line. And here we learn the basics of fishing. Each fish behaves slightly differently and prefers a certain type of lure. Pat's starter lure is the dragon flu, accompanied with a few stats pertaining to a fish's preference. When this symbol appears, this is a suitable spot for fishing. Press X to bring up the casting icon, choose a spot to cast and press X again to cast. If the desired fish is in the vicinity, it will be attracted to the lure, but only will stay interested depending on the compatibility meter. Are we having fun yet? Reeling in the lure requires a steady hand. A fish is attracted by a lure's certain movement, dictated by how fast it's been reeled in, utilising an excellent use of the analog button control. Pressing X lightly or harder adjusts the reeling speed. Once a fish bites, press circle to hook it and the battle begins. The fish will naturally try to escape, but don't just simply slam down the accelerator. If the reeling meter becomes too taut and blinks, a line break will occur, so watch out for the fish fighting back. Direction instructions will be displayed, and quickly pressing the corresponding directional button will tire out the fish, allowing for a fast period of reeling. Keep this up and fish get! Ah, look at his little happy dance. That's not all there is to the science of fishing fantasy, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to more. But first let's carry on with Pat's quote-unquote adventure. When catching a fish and completing a stage, Pat will be rewarded with random items and a lithograph piece. Intriguing. They all look like they all fit together. Other key items are found lying around in these Mario blocks, which include diary pages from Pat's uncle chronicling his experiences. The thick plottons. What are these random objects you collect, you may ask? Obtaining new lures isn't a simple matter of finding them, they have to be crafted. Not only does each type of fish drop certain items, the first one you catch will also drop a lure recipe. A recipe has a list of items needed to craft the lure at these lure crafting dome thingies. It couldn't be a simple table or workbench, could it? You may have noticed Fishing Fantasy has a subtitle, Buzzrod, and I have no idea what a Buzzrod is. In-game it only appears once with the tutorial recap, only referring to the game itself. It's not the name of Pat's fishing rod, there doesn't seem to be a fishing rod peripheral called Buzzrod. The only reason it's there is because the original Japanese game is called Buzzrod Fishing Fantasy. But that still doesn't explain what a Buzzrod is, and yes, I know, keep your minds out of the gutter. The stages are accessed via teleporters in a hub system of ancient statuary on a spiral staircase reminiscent of demon souls. Ah yes, that classic English heritage. The stages are nothing unusual considering, like rivers, jungles, the seaside, etc., harbouring a few species of fish indigenous of such locations. Certain species will only appear at certain times of day, so spotting that elusive fish that could be holding that last ingredient you need to proceed is definitely a test of patience. But catching a fish is always a good feeling, especially after a long struggle and... Pat? Pat? What's he looking at? He seemed to be staring off past the fish into the distance, with this blank, dead-eyed look. Maybe he's come to the realisation that I did when playing, that the fishing part is not what you spend most of the time doing. It's all about the lure crafting. I found myself not thinking, I need this lure to catch this fish, but rather, I need to catch this fish so I can finish crafting this lure. The lures become the focus. If you come across a fish in a stage you cannot catch for not having the appropriate lure, you need to travel to previous stages with more recently crafted lures to catch fish you couldn't catch before to find materials for this new lure.
Fill in this form and you'll be eligible to request the correct items for a new lure in order to catch the fish to move on to the next stage.
What next stage?
The next stage, which may have materials needed to catch a fish that you saw 2 stages ago. Fill out a request to change the time of day, so a certain fish may appear that randomly drops 2 items that will only drop the item that you don't want several times.
Enough! Enough of the fishing and the lore crafting. What about Pat's uncle? What of the ancient civilization? What do the pieces of the lithograph reveal? Normally I wouldn't spoil a game's ending or plot, but even if I wanted to, I can't. I could not beat Fishing Fantasy, not due to the game becoming too hard, but because of a game-breaking mistake. When you get to the stage The Last Jungle, Pat is required to catch a special ancient fish. This requires a special lure. Its ingredients include all of the lithograph pieces collected so far, barring one. The one you would get for completing The Last Jungle. Yes, you need to complete the stage in order to catch the fish to complete this stage. When browsing around the internet about this, I'm not the only one who has encountered this problem. From the very few YouTube videos on Fishing Fantasy, a popular question is, how do I get past The Last Jungle? It turns out, nobody can, not without modifying the save data, which is an avenue I'm unfamiliar with. So good job, Starfish, your game is unbeatable. At its core, this is just a fishing game, and a perfectly adequate one at that. Pat and the story of his uncle and the ancient civilization seems unnecessary, especially since you can't see the outcome. From a research point of view, Fishing Fantasy may be the most obscure title I've covered so far. There's no Wikipedia page, no walkthroughs, in English at least, a small handful of YouTube videos, websites I've looked at have little to no information. Ooh, someone asked a question on GameFAQs. How do I get past The Last Jungle? Oh, great. This certainly is a game. The fishing part is fun and that should be the main focus. It's just a little odd that it plays second fiddle to the lore crafting. Would I recommend this? As a game collector, definitely. It's a curious little obscure title. But for actually playing it? Not really. Fishing games are not my speciality, but I'm sure there are superior examples out there. And I'm guessing those games can actually be completed.